Welcome to my channel. This time I'm building a toilet paper holder for a friend who is renovating his house. For the walls and the shelf, I plan to use spruce wood, and for the top a piece of ash that I have lying around. For the back piece, I use a piece of plywood that is 12 millimeters thick. I'll start by planing the spruce plank. Once the plank has a smooth surface, I cut it into two pieces that are 32 centimeters long and one piece that is 12 centimeters. I also cut the latter piece to 13 centimeters on the other side. When the pieces of spruce are ready, I cut the piece of ash to 30 centimeters long and 15 centimeters wide, and finally, I cut a piece of plywood to 32 by 13.5 centimeters. The long pieces of spruce should have one rounded corner at the bottom, and the piece of ash should have two rounded corners. To mark the corners, I use a compass. Then I use the jigsaw and cut a little outside the markings. To shape the corners to the perfect shape, I use the bench disc sander. Once the corners are finished, I continue sanding the remaining surfaces of the pieces. I round off the edges that will point outwards on the holder. I don't do anything with the edges that will face the top plate and the wall. Now it's time to make the cutouts for the small shelf. I set the blade height to 0.5 centimeters and make the first cut 15 centimeters from the top of the pieces. I use the shelf to measure where the second cut should be. Once the stop block is adjusted, I make a second cut and remove all the material between the cuts. Now it's time to make the cutouts for the back piece. I start by adjusting the blade height to 12.7 millimeters, which is the actual thickness of the plywood sheet. Then I set the fence to 0.5 centimeters, and I make the first cuts with the pieces standing on edge. Now I adjust the blade height to 11 millimeters, which is the distance between the edge and the first cut. Then I set the fence as close to 12.7 millimeters as I can. Finally, I make the second cut with the pieces lying flat. I couldn't film when I was milling out the recess for the paper holder, but this is what it looks like when it's finished. Spruce has such a dull color that I decided to stain the wood. That also removes some of the discoloration in the ash piece, which contains some heartwood. I use a shade of mahogany. Even though the stain doesn't really resemble mahogany, it looks better than the light color of spruce. Time to glue the pieces together. I start assembling the gable pieces with the shelf. Then I continue with the back piece. Once all the pieces are held in place by clamps, I attach the back piece with 8 screws. Perfect. Now it's almost time to glue the top plate onto the holder. To make sure it's attached properly, I use wooden dowel pin rods. I start by drilling 4 6mm holes on the top of the holder. Then I insert marker pins into the holes and press the top plate into place. Now I have markings so I can also drill 4 holes in the top plate. Now the pieces are completely ready to be glued together. I choose epoxy as the varnish, which is a little better suited to a bathroom where humidity can be relatively high. This is what it looks like when it's finished. A slightly rustic design, but still a nice surface finish.